Hi, I'm Pippa Hamilton and I'm here on behalf of Disabled Students UK to talk about how we can take a proactive approach to higher education accessibility. A quick sensory description of myself. I am a blonde white woman in my mid-20s and I have an English accent. A little bit about my background. I recently graduated from a social psychology master's course. I have the conditions ME and POTS, and this personal experience led me to research the uni experiences of students with chronic illnesses. So I would like to start by asking the lecturers and tutors out there to kind of ask yourself a question. When I design a course or module, am I unconsciously assuming that all my students are non-disabled? So to give one fairly straightforward example, are you assuming that all students will consistently be able to attend in-person lectures if they choose to? Now, the issue here is that for students with chronic illnesses, this isn't always possible. And as a result, if lecture material isn't available online, this may put them at a disadvantage. So the first option you could take to solve this is that if you had a student who came to you and they disclosed their chronic illness or disability and they explain that they keep missing lectures because of this, you can then make sure that from then on the lecture material is available to them online remotely. This would be an example of a reactive disability accommodation. So you found out that the course wasn't accessible for this student, and so you made an adjustment that was specifically for them. But what are the issues with a reactive approach to accessibility? Now, a reactive approach may solve the problem for that individual student, but I want to try to explain why this approach isn't always the ideal way to achieve accessibility in higher education. So firstly, it can be very time and energy consuming for students to frequently request and arrange these accommodations, which especially may be an issue for students who struggle with fatigue. Secondly, the reactive approach relies on the idea that the student is actually willing to approach you and ask for a disability accommodation, and they feel confident that it is essentially within their right to do so. However, what I've learned through my research, as well as to a certain extent my personal experiences, is that students don't always feel confident asking for accommodations, particularly when this can require first disclosing a chronic illness or disability. Some students can feel quite anxious that if they share their chronic illness, they'll be stigmatized, or that people will think that they're faking their illness if it isn't necessarily obviously visible. And so some students may be wary about asking for disability accommodations because they're not confident they're going to be seen as having a legitimate disability. So because of this, I would quite like to recommend taking a proactive approach to accessibility. So this is known in education studies as an anticipatory universal design. And what this essentially means is anticipating the accessibility requirements that your students may have and doing your best to proactively design a course that is as accessible as possible to as many students as possible. So there are many ways that this can be achieved. For example, making lecture material available online to all students can make your teaching more inclusive to students with disabilities, as well as any other students who, through no fault of their own, might be at a disadvantage when lecture material is only available in person. This kind of pre-planning can help to avoid the need to reactively arrange and implement quite so many adjustments that would be needed in a course solely designed for non-disabled students. And it's worth noting that this can actually save you time in the long run. So as well as helping students have a fairer shot at fulfilling their academic potential, this can also help students to feel more confident that they actually belong within higher education when they take part in a course that feels like it was actually designed for someone like them. Now, of course, reactive accommodations may ultimately still be needed sometimes, and it may not always be possible to anticipate every student's accessibility needs. But where possible, it is so valuable to really try to ingrain accessibility in how you plan and design your teaching, and to kind of continually learn from your students about how you can improve even more. So I want to leave you with these questions to keep in mind in your teaching process. Even if it is not intentional, am I designing a course that will exclude and disadvantage some students in a way that could be avoided? How can I make this course more inclusive to help a diverse group of students fulfill their potential and feel a real sense of belonging within higher education? You really do have the ability to empower students when you make accessibility an essential part of how you teach. And if you would like to learn any more about how you can improve accessibility for students with chronic illnesses, please feel free to email me at pippa.hamilton.research@gmail.com. You can also find my research to read if you search Hamilton, Hume and Harrison 2021. And if you would like to learn more about higher education accessibility in general, please contact Access Insights at Disabled Students UK or have a look at their website. Thank you very much for listening.